Part 79. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 785. My Wu. Looking at Wang Ling, who was sleeping, Xiao He groaned from time to time, seeming to be calling, and also seemed to be wondering why Wang Ling hadn't woken up yet. After being confused for a while, Xiao He simply stepped forward and nudged the side of Wang Ling's face with his nose, but he never got any reply. In the Red Alert world, something happened to Wang Ling, but Xiao He has been staying in the real world and doesn't know what's going on in that world. Now that Wang Ling still has life characteristics and is still very vigorous, although Xiao He is confused, he is not too persistent. After overcoming it, he returns to the kennel and tears open 3 ham sausages, a pack of dried meat, and a big quajuo. Became excited. After eating, this guy didn't forget to clean up. With a broom in his mouth, he carefully swept the dust in the dormitory and the packaging bag he had just thrown into the dustpan. He stood up, opened the dormitory door, and poured the garbage into the dustpan. In the bucket, I took a toilet, by the way. After I came back, I plugged the dormitory bolt again, and finally got a glass of water. After drinking it, I lay down in the kennel again, looking at Wang Ling with a confused look. The whole process seemed very normal, without any sense of unfamiliarity. These things are very simple for a normal person. But the problem is, Xiao He is a dog after all. This guy is already smart, not to mention that after the intermediate level of strengthening, he has gradually opened up his spiritual intelligence. His IQ is already comparable to that of a teenage child. As time goes by, this intelligence will continue to grow. Boom, boom, boom. Wang Ling, Xiao He, are you there? Just when Xiao He was confused, someone suddenly knocked on the door, and then Lily's voice came out. These days, Lily, Lao Shui, and other people in the dormitory building would occasionally visit Xiao He and bring food. Originally, Xiao He was used to it, and even opened the door himself every time, but now that Wang Ling hadn't woken up and was in a somewhat weird state, Xiao He was not at ease. He looked at Wang Ling and then at the dormitory door. Licked his mouth, and actually resisted the temptation of food and refused to open the door. Boom, boom, boom. Xiao He, why don't you open the door? I brought your favorite jerky. But Lily was still knocking on the door. As soon as he heard the dried meat, Xiao He stood up immediately, but after weighing it, he continued to lie down and refused to open the door. As a result, after knocking on the door for a while, Lao Shui understood something and began to persuade her, Lily, forget it. The door hasn't been opened for so long. Maybe they are not in the dormitory. But Lily still didn't give up. You shouldn't. You should lock the door when you're not in the dormitory. You shouldn't penetrate in reverse. It's not like you don't know Xiao He's temper. If you're a foodie, normally, even if you're asleep, you'll definitely open the door for you when you hear dried meat. But now you've been knocking for so long. The door doesn't open, and there's no sound. There must be something wrong and it's inconvenient. Lao Shui persuaded me again, and this sentence really hit the point. Lily had no choice but to finally give in. Okay. Let's see it another time. My Wu. After the two left, no sound could be heard, and Xiao He couldn't help but let out a low cry, looking very embarrassed. In the real world, Xiao He is in a dilemma, but in the Red Alert world, Wang Ling is very comfortable, lying in the tent of Yuri Base, enjoying the comfortable softness, without thinking about things in the real world at all. It was stable until dawn. The blackened Wang Ling lost all the self-discipline in his work and rest. He ignored the work and rest time specified by Yuri Base and missed the morning exercises. After getting up, it was breakfast time. After a brief activity, wolfing down some breakfast, and wandering out for a while, Yuri will the troops assist. Wang Ling nodded and glanced at the troops. Yuri X seemed to attach great importance to this attack. Although the number of troops sent was not too many, it was complete enough. Among them, there are more than 50 Yuri recruits, more than 10 orcs, 5 psychic troops, and 2 virus snipers, forming an infantry team. 10 tornado tanks, 10 gate tanks, 5 magneto tanks, and 3 spirit empty tanks formed a tank and combat vehicle team. There are also more than 10 laser UFOs hanging in the air, also joining the combat team. After seeing this lineup, Wang Ling was quite satisfied. It's not bad, but if you let me lead the team, more than half of these troops should not need to fire. You are confident. But I like this kind of confidence. It seems that Ryan's base can't survive today, Yuri. Wang Ling glanced at him and ignored him. Instead, he waved his hand and gave the order directly. All troops are reminded that they are not allowed to leave the team. All armored units are based on the speed of infantry. Anyone who leaves without permission will die. Yes. All the offensive units responded quickly, and then it was finally time to set off. As soon as this group of attacking troops left the base, and Wang Ling was about to follow them from behind, unexpectedly, Yuri X also took the lead. This made Wang Ling a little dissatisfied. Hey, what are you doing? Yuri X was puzzled. Can't I go? TCH, are you worried about me? Wang Ling was a little disdainful. Yuri, you can't say for sure. The abacus is pretty good, but you won't succeed. I have to blow up the allied base with my own hands, otherwise it will be hard to get rid of my hatred. Wang Ling snorted coldly and ignored Yuri X, turned around and followed the troops. Yuri X didn't take Wang Ling's words to heart. He smiled and followed Wang Ling from behind. Because of Wang Ling's order, the attacking troops always used the speed of the infantry as the benchmark, so their marching speed was naturally slower. However, when large troops gathered together and marched together, they also seemed a bit menacing. With the help of signals from spy satellites, the movements of Yuri's troops naturally fell into the eyes of the Allies immediately. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell at a glance the direction of the attacking troops, which was where General Ryan's base was located. After observing this group of enemy troops and their targets on the electronic map, General Ryan was quite disdainful. After all, he and Agent Tanya had fought too many battles in succession and had many experiences in siege of cities and territories and defense. General Ryan did not take this attack seriously. However, when he zoomed in to view the electronic video, he was immediately shocked. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 786. Why was General Ryan scared? Because this guy actually saw Wang Ling in the electronic video. Yes, he had cooperated with Agent Tanya in the past and was almost invincible in conquering cities and territories. Too many Yuri bases were destroyed in their hands. Although Agent Tanya has now been separated, with his command and combat experience, he can deal with the attacks of Yuri's troops. Attack, isn't that easy to do? But after all, that was for ordinary Yuri troops, definitely not including the pervert Wang Ling. The number of troops sent by Yuri this time is not too large. At best, it is slightly larger than an ordinary storm attack. But who would have expected that the leader of this group of Yuri troops would be Wang Ling? Why did the Allies try their best to trap and kill Wang Ling during the alliance? They were not afraid of his powerful combat power and decided that Wang Ling would be the enemy of the Allied forces in the future. From this aspect, the Allies also recognized that Wang Ling's combat effectiveness was strong enough to threaten the safety of the Allies. However, now that the enemy, which has made the Allies feel on edge, has personally sent troops to attack his own base, can General Ryan not be afraid? If it were just other Yuri troops, it would be easier to say, but Wang Ling is really sad at this level. Tanya. In the panic, General Ryan finally remembered Agent Tanya and quickly sent her a radio message. Wang Ling is invading. Hurry, bring troops to help, we can't stop him. However, there was no response at all on the radio, which made the frightened General Ryan even more impatient, and quickly shouted, "Reply, Tanya. You stinky bitch." In his impatience, General Ryan accidentally cursed. In fact, this insult was the dissatisfaction that General Ryan had accumulated against Tanya deep in his heart. A woman with a military rank 2 levels lower than him was even more arrogant than him. She completely ignored his majesty and even asked him to do things in return. Even though Agent Tanya was a hero of the Allied forces, this kind of lack of superiority still made him feel resentful. He had kept it secret before, but he still cursed him out of anger. Smelly bitch. However, before he realized this, Agent Tanya suddenly replied. It turned out that Agent Tanya had been listening before and just didn't want to pay attention to him. But even after being scolded, if she doesn't say anything, will she still be Tanya? Ryan, it turns out that I have always been like this in your mind. Okay, today I just treated you as a stinky bitch for once. You can figure it out yourself. Don't expect me to come to the rescue. Tanya. After Agent Tanya finished scolding him, she cut off the radio without giving Ryan a chance to defend or apologize. Sir, are you really not going to rescue me? After the communication ended, one deputy became confused. But Agent Tanya asked angrily, didn't you hear what he called me? Is this the attitude of begging for help? And the person who attacked this time is Wang Ling. Who doesn't know his combat effectiveness? Send troops to die. The two deputies glanced at each other and wisely did not ask any more questions. They could only sigh silently in their hearts, never offend a creature like a woman. Damn it! This stinky bitch has really given her a hard time. She really thinks of herself as a person. At the same time, in the command post of General Ryan's base, General Ryan was also very angry because of Tanya's attitude. Beside him, a deputy was also a little angry. General, just because of one sentence, Chief Tanya refused to send troops to support us regardless of our life or death. This is too stingy and lacks the overall situation. The other deputy was also a little aggrieved. Stingy? I don't think so. Because the intruder is Wang Ling, and she doesn't dare to attack. The dignified Allied hero turns out to be a coward. Normally, these two deputies would never dare to speak ill of Tanya, but now it is a matter of life and death for them, so why should they care about this? However, after all, General Ryan took it seriously, snorted coldly, and directly said, "What a coward, what dissatisfaction with my insults, these are just excuses. Isn't Tanya's little idea obvious? Last time she asked me to mass-produce invader fighter jets and wanted to rescue Wang Ling, but I refused and threatened her. This is where she holds a grudge and the real reason why she refuses to send troops. This." After hearing this, the two deputies were even more annoyed. What a stinky bitch. Fortunately, she is still a hero of the Allied forces, but she is so petty, and she is for the Allied forces. Humph. It seems that we can't count on Tanya in this battle. Then we ask for help from the coalition forces and ask for assistance, okay. Don't even think about it. Even though the coalition forces have restored power to us, they can't really put out the fire before Wang Ling is rescued. What's more, Wang Ling is personally leading the troops this time, so they can't come to help. Then what should we do? Don't worry, there is another way. As long as we kill Wang Ling in advance, we can still defend this battle. Kill Wang Ling. General, this is too difficult. Humph. It may have been a fantasy before, but don't forget, I built a lot of invader fighter planes in order to threaten Tanya. In order to deal with Wang Ling's threat, General Ryan did everything possible. However, they were anxious and annoyed. As the source of the threat, Wang Ling was very indifferent. He even complained during the march, the technology of the Seoul Empire is not weak anymore. Why is there no vehicle or aircraft to travel? Although he was under control, Wang Ling was still thinking about how the large forces relied on anti-aircraft crawlers to march quickly during the coalition. In contrast, he was certainly dissatisfied with this spiritual empire. But Yuri, it's not that I paid much attention to it. Cut. Wang Ling was obviously a little disdainful, but Yuri on behalf of others. Are you still dreaming? Wang Ling rolled her eyes at him. Dreaming? Haha, this is not a dream. Huh? There's something going on at that Allied base, Yuri. At the base, when you look closer, you can see that there are more than 20 invader fighter planes. Yuri. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 787. Bet? Ha, you really have some leisure time. Wang Ling glanced at Yuri. If you are bombing the psychic beacon while I am away, then we will retreat immediately and give up the attack. Yuri X was immediately choked up by his statement and his face turned red. He said he wanted to make a bet, but he didn't say there was a bet. Wang Ling is so good. Not only did he agree, but he also made a bet beforehand. It's easy to talk about other bets, but what the hell is giving up the attack? After choking, Yuri. Repent? Wang Ling smiled very playfully. Is it strange that I regretted it? I was a member of the Allied forces before, but now I have regretted it and become a member of the Soul Empire. Unreasonable, Yuri X's face turned dark and ugly. But Wang Ling smiled again. You are still a hero-level unit of the Great Soul Empire. You can't bear this blow? If I bet you retreat, will you definitely retreat? What if those invader fighter planes are coming for me? Already. Yuri X was speechless, and it seemed like he acquiesced. But in fact, this guy's eyes were moving wildly, and he was still thinking about what to do if he lost the bet. But Wang Ling didn't care about this. While marching with the troops, he was still observing the movements of the intruders' fighter planes. Although this invader fighter aircraft is an air force and is extremely fast, no matter how fast it will still take time to travel. After all, the distance between the two sides is not short. As for the Allies, they naturally had no way of knowing the bet between Wang Ling and Yuri in the past. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell who his target was. Observing this scene, Yuri. Wang Ling spat and cursed, "You ungrateful thing. Why are you seeking death when you can live? Stop marching and attack UFOs and get tanks with lasers." Since he was determined to attack, there was nothing more to say. Wang Ling directly issued the order to respond, and then he himself transformed into a king-level air defense infantry and stood ready. Not long after, this group of invader fighter jets finally approached. Swish swish swish. Da-da-da. Click. Boom. At the front, the laser UFO and getter tanks all opened fire, violently bombarding these invader fighters. Although the attack capability was powerful and the flying speed was extremely fast, the armor and health of this kind of fighter were too low. Under the bombardment, more than 10 of them were shot down in a matter of seconds. The remaining invader fighter planes made use of these losses and successfully broke through the fire circle of the two major air defense forces, but... Dong 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 dong. Dong 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 dong. Wang Ling then opened fire. This guy's anti-aircraft firepower was so powerful that it was more powerful than those laser UFOs and getter tanks combined. Under his bombardment, these intruder fighter planes barely rushed over. The falling speed was even more exaggerated. As soon as they flew above Wang Ling's head, they were all shot down. However, before the last 4 invader fighter planes crashed, they desperately dropped 4 missiles and bombed Wang Ling. Indeed, whether in the game or in the Red Alert world, the role of fighter jets has been greatly weakened, but the missile attack power of fighter jets is not overwhelming. After 4 missiles bombarded, even a pervert like Wang Ling will be dead. But that has to be a hit. After Wang Ling saw these 4 missiles, he didn't panic. Instead, he jumped to one side one after another. The 4 missiles were not as flexible as him, and they hit the places he passed along the way. None of them hit Wang Ling. Under normal circumstances, infantry in the red alert world cannot escape the bombardment of 4 consecutive missiles, but Wang Ling is an exception. 3-star elite tank vehicles can avoid danger on their own. Faced with the missile bombardment of intruder fighter planes, they can usually easily avoid it by simply moving one position. And Wang Ling is already at the level of a 10-star soldier king in multiple arms. How can he still dodge a few missiles? You are really a Xiaoqiang. Even a fighter jet can't kill you. Seeing Wang Ling easily dodge the missile bombardment, Yuri X couldn't help but tease him. Wang Ling rolled his eyes. My life is precious, but these fighter jets want my life. What nonsense! If I can be bombed to death so easily, then there is no need for the Mind Empire to design me specifically. That's right, although this may be a bit arrogant, it is indeed true, and Yuri X has to admit it. Then Wang Ling twisted his neck and his eyes gradually became fierce. Ryan, I've given you a chance. If you don't cherish it, then go to hell. Everyone, speed up. Yes. A group of infantrymen took the order and ran faster than before, followed by other armored units. It's broken, it's broken. It didn't kill him. He is such a pervert, even the intruder fighter planes can't blow him up. Wang Ling was furious, but the 2 assistants in the Ryan base command post were as if they were falling into an ice cellar. Looking at Wang Ling's figure in the electronic video, it was like looking at the god of death. Ryan also clenched his fists and complained, damn it! It's all the fault of that bastard Reagan, who personally pushed Wang Ling to the Seoul Empire, and now he's going to kill us. It's also the fault of that stinky bitch Tanya. What kind of psychic beacon was blown up in the first place? Wouldn't it have been over once and for all by just blowing up Wang Ling to death? At this time, Ryan was facing the threat of death, and his mentality collapsed, as if everyone in the world felt sorry for him. However, after all, as a commander, he did not give up the idea of resisting. He could not count on reinforcements, so he hurriedly piled up all the guards in the base towards the entrance, sharpened his guns before the battle, and built a light prism tower next to the intersection. Resistance is temporary. As for escaping? As a commander, abandoning the base and escaping alone would not be looked down upon by others. Even the top leaders of the Allied forces would not agree. If caught, they would be shot, so it would be better to engage in a vigorous fight. When all the guards were assembled and ready for battle, Yuri's offensive force, led by Wang Ling, marched for a period of time before finally approaching the edge of the base. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 788. General, they are coming. Seeing Yuri's offensive troops approaching the city, the 2 deputies in General Ryan's command post were completely panicked, with despair in their eyes and their calves trembling slightly. They couldn't help but not be afraid. After all, the pressure Wang Ling put on them was too great. Even General Ryan gritted his teeth and stared at the electronic video for a while before comforting himself and said, "Don't worry, Wang Ling is still a human being no matter how powerful he is in combat. Our combat effectiveness is also very strong, so I don't believe that he can destroy our entire base with just one person." The words were beautiful, but even the 2 deputies didn't believe them. Outside the base, Yuri's troops arrived, and during the final reorganization, Wang Ling also made an attack plan. Listening to his arrangement, Yuri X was also nodding his head and sighing silently in his heart. No wonder all the Yuri bases that Wang Ling encountered before were destroyed by him. What makes Wang Ling powerful is not only his personal combat power, but also his control of the situation and his familiarity and command of various types of arms, which are enough to scare the enemy. After the plan was finalized, the troops soon began to attack. Yuri's troops did not have a large human shield like the coalition's Apocalypse tank, so they had to resort to the Tornado tank as the next best option, and charged forward, while Wang Ling followed behind at a certain distance from other tanks and vehicles. Swish swish swish. Not long after marching, the light prism tanks piled at the entrance started to fire. More than 10 light prism rays were fired, blasting 2 Gustav tanks almost instantly. The firepower was very powerful. However, Wang Ling didn't feel sorry for these tanks at all. Instead, he smiled very cunningly. Although the more than 10 light prism tanks looked mighty now, their firepower had been restrained due to the bombardment of the Gust tank. Taking advantage of the gap where the next round of light prism rays failed to hit, the 5 magnetron tanks that followed them, however, the tanks were already in place, and 5 light prism tanks were attracted from a very long distance. That's not all. It seemed that they were afraid of being targeted by subsequent light prism rays. After the adsorption was successful, the 5 magneto-electric tanks maintained the adsorption state and immediately retreated from the dangerous zone. However, the 5 adsorbed light tanks did not escape control. Instead, they followed the 5 thick electromagnetic waves and rose into the air. They were pulled out of the base in the air and gradually floated towards Yuri's troops. Swish swish swish. During this period, the remaining prism tanks had already finished brewing and launched a second round of prism rays. The previous round was reduced to residual health, and 2 more Gust tanks were exploded. However, just after the light prism ray fell, Wang Ling rushed forward in the gap, picked up the Soldier King level enhanced AK rifle and fired at the remaining light prism tanks under his target. Not one of them survived, they all exploded. The range of Wang Ling's current elite combat soldiers has indeed exceeded that of virus snipers, but it has not been exaggerated to the point where it can match the light prism tanks. Without any means of recklessness, these light prism tanks are enough to kill him. Fate. In the entire Allied base, this was one of the few arms that Wang Ling still feared. So the first step in this attack is to design and kill these light tanks. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. When the light prism tank at the entrance exploded, the Getter tank behind him also opened fire, concentrating on the 5 light prism tanks that took off. Although the prism tank has powerful firepower, it is a big squishy. Moreover, it is still in the air and unable to resist. It is basically a living target. As a result, under the concentrated fire of 10 Get tanks, it was wiped out in a matter of seconds. Haha, this style of play really refreshed my cognitive perspective. Wang Ling, I have you. Yuri X witnessed all this and clapped his hands happily from behind. In fact, these prism tanks are not only a threat to Wang Ling, but also a fatal threat to other Yuri troops. Although Wang Ling's plan used the Tornado tanks as human shields, 4 of them were bombed, but compared to the force attack, this loss is already considered small. Da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. But Wang Ling ignored him. After the light tank disappeared and without this threat, Wang Ling became unscrupulous and began to attack the Allied troops piled up at the intersection from a long distance. Oh. Ugh. Well. Boom. 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 Wang Ling's firepower was now so strong that no troops could withstand it, and the Allied troops were no exception. Under his shooting, large areas of Allied infantry died tragically, and a large number of tanks and vehicles exploded one after another. The other Yuri troops had not yet begun their attack, but Wang Ling's strafing had already caused heavy losses to the Allies. While he was strafing, the Allies couldn't reach him due to range issues. As a result, when they strafed the tank killers, more than a dozen tank killers finally couldn't stand it anymore and rushed out collectively, as if they wanted to launch a counterattack. But da-da-da-da-da. Boom. 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 Before they could rush to Wang Ling, they all exploded under Wang Ling's fire. Gata gata gata. After the tank killer exploded, more than 10 terrifying robots quickly came over, aiming directly at Wang Ling. If this thing were to successfully attack, Wang Ling would die miserably. However, they have to be able to pounce on them. Although the terrorist robot is fast, it is also very fragile. Wang Ling just sneered and shook the rifle several times. The rate of fire was as fast as a Gatling gun, almost it was a terrifying robot that exploded in an instant. Charge. Buzz buzz. Rush. Oh. Ha ha ha. At this time, under Wang Ling's order, Yuri's troops on standby also began to charge. However, the charge of this group of troops was also arranged by Wang Ling in advance, with the tornado tank as the vanguard to attract firepower, and the mind control vehicles following closely behind. The other troops were free to do so. Under this arrangement of charge, the tornado tanks in front quickly met the Allied guards. They had been threatened by Wang Ling's firepower and were unable to fight back. Now they finally touched Yuri's troops. What else is there to discuss? Just open fire. Buzz. Buzz. However, not long after the firing from the front, the mind control vehicles from the rear also arrived. Wherever they went, all the Allied troops were forcibly controlled. And after being controlled, these troops immediately received Wang Ling's order to attack all surrounding Allied troops and buildings at any cost. This approach, to put it bluntly, is to let them consume it on their own. Although they were comrades one moment and were controlled the next, other Allied troops had to open fire to destroy these controlled troops. There is no way, if you don't beat him, he will beat you. As a result, after this back and forth, although the mind control car also lost a certain amount of blood due to excessive control, it was still within the tolerable range overall. At this moment, the situation was completely chaotic. In the chaos, the laser UFOs in the sky also took advantage of the situation and moved collectively to a power plant. They were absorbed like tarsal maggots and sucked up in an instant. Provided power to the entire Allied base. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 789. Speaking of which, units such as the laser UFO are really a killer weapon for Yuri's troops. They can effectively defend against air defense and bombard ground targets. Of course, what gives the enemy the most headache and fear is when this thing attacks the base. Method: once it is absorbed into the sky above the power plant, it can cut off the power supply of the entire base in an instant. Ryan Base has the power supply of its own base and the power supply of the Allied nuclear reactors. It is very rich in electricity. But no matter how rich you are, you can't resist the attraction of the laser UFO. No matter how much electricity you have, it will all be cut off in an instant. Buzzing. With the power outage, all the light prism towers and anti-aircraft missiles in the Allied base lost power and stopped. Even the spy satellites were paralyzed, and the electronic maps were directly blinded. Part of the Allied forces' defense power relies on the guards of the base, but a considerable part of it relies on the firepower of the defensive buildings. Therefore, after the power outage, the entire base fell into a semi-paralyzed state, and its defense power was reduced by more than half. Take this opportunity to speed up the charge. Wang Ling did not miss this opportunity to attack. With an order, Yuri's troops, who were still slowly advancing from the rear, suddenly rushed forward, roaring, and fought with the remaining Allied guards. Collide. Da-da-da-da-da. Naturally, Wang Ling was not idle either. He was always suppressing the Allied guards at the entrance with firepower. Coupled with the harassment of the mind control vehicles and the charge of other Yuri troops, the entire base's guard force was quickly exhausted. The city gate was breached, and Yuri's troops filed in. Even Yuri X, who was watching the show from behind, took the opportunity to break into the base. If this Allied base can be compared to a tiger, then this tiger has had its teeth pulled out and its claws broken, leaving only a bulky body that is useless and is left to be eaten by mermaids. After Yuri's troops broke into the base, they were so unscrupulous that all the Allied buildings within the range of fire were pushed forward with concentrated fire, showing full of barbarity. Naturally, today's Allied base still has some resistance, such as more than a dozen machine gun bunkers. However, the firepower of these bunkers was not very strong, but they burst into pieces one after another under the impact of Yuri's troops. Boom! 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 During this process, Wang Ling also added insult to injury, switching to a SEAL team and directly blowing up all the Allied buildings in close contact. The speed was not much slower than other Yuri troops. Humph, what a great opportunity! The Allied forces' technology belongs to us. While the entire Yuri force was destroying the Allied base, Yuri from above, the entire command post, as well as the commander, deputies, and all staff in the command post were controlled almost instantly. This is the unique function of Yuri X, the hero-level unit of the Mind Empire, to control buildings. Almost most of the buildings cannot escape the control of Yuri. However, this control method can only control one building. If the target is forcibly changed, the previous controlled building will also regain its position and mind. Therefore, good steel is used on the blade, and Yuri X does not care about other buildings. Directly took control of the Allied command post. During the previous battle for hegemony, Wang Ling wanted to use engineers to occupy the Allied base command post, but his purpose was too obvious, and the Allied command post would not be occupied even if it self-destruct. Wang Ling gave up this idea after repeated attempts. However, Yuri X's occupation method was very unique, and he was already controlled without giving Ryan time to react. The technology of the Mind Empire is inherently perverted and cruel. If you add the technology of the Allies, you can imagine how powerful it will become. Thinking of this, Yuri X couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth and smiled very proudly. But who gave you control? Wang Ling saw this scene. He didn't care whether the command post was under control or not. He rushed forward in a few steps and blew up the entire command post with a bomb. Wang Ling. This explosion really stunned Yuri X. He was still dreaming about future military technology, but Wang Ling was blown back to reality by a bomb. After calming down, even though he was used to Wang Ling's domineering attitude, he couldn't help but get angry and yelled at Wang Ling, "Do you know what you did?" Boom! Boom! However, Wang Ling did not pay attention to him immediately. Instead, he ran forward a few steps and blew up the tank factory at the Allied base with a bang. Then he turned around and blew up the Air Command headquarters, and wiped out the exposed working soldiers. After blowing up all the productivity buildings in succession, Wang Ling clapped his hands with satisfaction, then suddenly remembered Yuri X and tilted his head to look. And watching the duck he got fly into the sky, and even the duck feathers were thrown away, one can imagine how angry Yuri X would be, as the surroundings seemed to be steaming with flames. However, when Wang Ling saw him like this, he slapped his ears nonchalantly, "Tch, I told you before that I was going to blow up this Allied base with my own hands, but you still don't believe it. You at this moment, even with Yuri, how helpful will it be to us? Who are you yelling at?" But when Wang Ling did this, he didn't have the slightest idea that he had done anything wrong. He blocked Yuri. "Yes, I also have the right to ruin this opportunity." Yuri X is hot. Yuri is so angry. Yuri X wants to cry but has no tears. 10,000 grass and mud horses are galloping in Yuri X's heart. "We are both heroic units, why are you so arrogant and why am I so offended? How can there be a prisoner like you?" However, listening to Wang Ling's words and seeing his cynical attitude, Yuri X really had nothing to say to reprimand or refute. In fact, this is how it is. If Yuri X wants to control the Allied command post, he can only let the troops destroy the Allied base first, and then control it by surprise without giving the command post a chance to self-destruct. It would have been extremely difficult if he had been the one to lead the troops in the battle. Just being able to control the command post was really a blessing to Wang Ling. But Wang Ling didn't want him to take advantage of it, so he really had no idea. What about the overall view? In Wang Ling's current state, does he have Mao's overall view? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 790. Okay. This time, I admit it. I hope you can make up for this huge loss in the future. Looking at Wang Ling with gritted teeth, Yuri X finally suppressed his resentment temporarily after uttering harsh words. He had no choice but to suppress him. If he didn't say that this opportunity was originally created by Wang Ling, even if he wanted to hold him accountable, what could he do to Wang Ling? I obviously feel unhappy with him, but I can't kill him. This is probably Yuri X's true heart at this moment. TCH, boring. However, Wang Ling didn't bother to pay attention to him. After rolling his eyes, he waved his hand and continued to urge, speed up the attack and bulldoze the space as soon as possible. After you are done, go back and drink. Oh. Upon hearing the word drink, the Yuri infantry teams became even more excited and accelerated their attack pace. And this allied base has lost its resistance, and now it catches up with this group of hungry Yuri troops, so what suspense is left in this battle? All the remaining buildings in the allied base quickly collapsed under such madness. During this process, Wang Ling did not take any further action. Looking at the remaining allied base, there was nothing worthy of his personal action. He simply crossed his arms and stayed aside to watch indifferently. Yuri. Indeed, in his eyes, Wang Ling was too presumptuous, but after all, he was used to Wang Ling's domineering attitude, and looking at the group of Yuri troops attacking with all their might, the anger in Yuri X's heart finally dissipated. Speaking of which, his hero-level unit was really aggrieved in front of Wang Ling. Of course, although Wang Ling did not take him seriously, Yuri said, although you are very annoying, you are indeed very strong. Since the alliance between the Allied forces and the Allied forces, we have rarely swept through a base so happily. This time it is thanks to your blessing. After Wang Ling turned black, he became domineering and brutal. Naturally, he didn't care much about what he said before. However, when he replied, this guy's words were still a bit irritating, very few. Why do I feel like I'm used to it? Yuri X's forced smile suddenly solidified. Well, Wang Ling was really used to it before, but at that time, he was a coalition force who came to overthrow his Yuri base. I was right about what I said before. You are really annoying. After feeling annoyed, Yuri snorted coldly and really didn't want to talk to Wang Ling anymore. Boom. 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 The storming was still going on. Although the Ryan base had lost its resistance, there were quite a lot of remaining buildings. Yuri's troops stormed for a long time before dismantling all the buildings, and then added additional attacks to remove the scattered buildings. The attack came to an end when the hyperdimensional mining truck exploded. Ha ha ha, so happy. This is called fighting. It's fun. After the battle, a group of Yuri troops laughed wildly and seemed to enjoy this crushing attack. In this attack, Yuri's troops lost 6 tornado tanks, 2 Get tanks, more than 10 Yuri recruits, 3 wild orcs, and a laser UFO. It sounds like the casualties are not small, but in fact, there are so many people gathered together that there is not much loss. After all, this is the destruction of an entire Allied base. This kind of victory almost ended in complete victory. How could a group of Yuri troops not be arrogant? However, Wang Ling had long been accustomed to this kind of fighting. He just crossed his arms without any change in the expression on his face. Sure enough, Wang Ling's fighting power is too strong. Pushing him to the Seoul Empire camp will be a catastrophe for us. That's right, it's only been a while, and General Ryan's base has already been destroyed, but their casualties are minimal. Fortunately, we didn't go to rescue. With Wang Ling's combat power, even if we did, we would probably die. Chief Tanya still has the foresight. They captured General Ryan's base and suffered so little loss. Will they take advantage of the situation to attack us? It's possible. As the battle came to an end, the personnel of several major bases in the Mad New City war zone felt mixed emotions in their hearts when they saw the victorious posture of Yuri's troops. In the Tanya base command post, the two deputies looked extremely sad. They were thankful that no troops were sent to assist, but they were also worried about whether Wang Ling would continue the attack. However, there was a trace of sadness on Agent Tanya's face. She bit her lip and stared at Wang Ling in the electronic video without making any further comments. Similarly, General Li Wiki's command post was not peaceful either. By pushing Wang Ling towards the Seoul Empire camp, the Allies are simply trapping themselves in a cocoon. You deserve it. During the alliance, you dared to openly set up Wang Ling and shoot yourself in the foot. Zhao Pingwang and Rovsky felt quite gloating at this time. Because of Wang Ling's incident, they now hate the Allies even more than they hate the Seoul Empire, but they have to unite with them because of the overall situation. After complaining, General Li Wiki sighed and said, "It's not surprising that Yuri's army is led by Wang Ling in the attack. It has this effect. Others don't know his combat effectiveness, but we don't know it either. What we are thinking about now is what should we do if Wang Ling leads his troops to attack us?" This question stopped both Zhao and Ping Wang. After a short moment of silence, Rovsky said, "It's very difficult. Let alone whether we can resist his attack, it's just about how we should face it. It's probably confusing for him." Zhao Mingwang said, "I think it is not only us who are entangled, but Wang Ling may also be entangled. Although he was controlled, I feel that Wang Ling is still thinking about his old relationship. He let Sun Dehu and the others go before. This attack specifically avoided our coalition forces, and did not even pay attention to Agent Tanya. It only attacked Ryan's base, which may have illustrated Wang Ling's inner struggle. Well, Wang Ling, during the attack, our troop consumption was surprisingly low. In my opinion, we should take advantage of this momentum and continue the attack." While the coalition and allied forces were wary and in trouble, Yuri X was already encouraging Wang Ling to continue the offensive in the direction of Yuri's troops. However, Wang Ling crossed his arms and asked expressionlessly, "Are you coming to lead the troops?" "What, you're not going?" Yuri X was stunned and asked. Wang Ling laughed and said, "I only agreed to attack this base. I don't want to participate in other bases. If you want to attack, then lead your own troops. I'm going back to drink." Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 791. You are really annoying, Yuri X gritted his teeth after hearing this. However, he did not refute or protest. It was already very difficult to invite Wang Ling, the Buddha, to lead an attack. And by successfully destroying an allied base, he had achieved his goal. There was no need to rush Wang Ling. Too tight. And Wang Ling had heard his complaints so many times that he had long been immune to it. He glanced at him lightly and didn't take him seriously at all. He stopped the group of arrogant Yuri troops and shouted, "It's not even close, that's it, let's go back and drink." Oh! A group of Yuri infantrymen were overjoyed and responded loudly. After that, all the attacking troops quickly lined up and then embarked on the return journey with high spirits. Well, Yuri. However, when Wang Ling saw him, he teased, "Strange, why didn't you attack other bases?" Yuri. Ha ha ha. Wang Ling stopped answering and just laughed wildly. To be honest, he quite likes playing with Yuri X now. Sir, they're gone. They're gone. Finally left. I'm really afraid that Wang Ling will suddenly attack us again. After seeing the movements of Yuri's offensive troops from the electronic map, the two deputies in the Allied base command post were immediately relieved. After all, the pressure Wang Ling put on them was too great, enough to threaten their lives. Agent Tanya also breathed a sigh of relief, but what she was worried about was not whether Wang Ling could successfully defend the door, but how she should face Wang Ling now. Of course, the coalition forces also had the same idea as her. Seeing the retreat of Yuri's troops, almost everyone in the two bases let go of their worries. In General Li Weiqi's command post, Zhao Pingwang even said in a roundabout way, "Let me just say, we are not the only ones in trouble." In Wang Ling's state, he may not know how to face us and is deliberately avoiding us. Sigh, but General Li Weiqi sighed and said, "To be honest, I would rather he attack once. The more he looks like this, the more difficult it will be for us." Rovitsky answered without thinking, "General, there is nothing to be embarrassed about. Wang Ling is ours and we will get him back sooner or later. Since he refuses to conflict with us, then we can just rest and recuperate and prepare for the next attack or rescue." That's true, but I worry too much. In fact, Wang Ling's psychology really made Xiaoping guess right. Yuri specifically preserved Wang Ling's unique personality in order to maintain his strong fighting power, which also left Wang Ling nostalgic for the past and old friends. Even though it has turned dark, this nostalgia is something he doesn't want to tear up no matter what. So in his current state, he really doesn't know how to face those old subordinates, old leaders, and old friends. He simply chooses to escape and not face it, so he won't embarrass himself. Yuri X couldn't do anything about it. After a period of march, Yuri's offensive force headed by Wang Ling finally returned to the made new city base. Wang Ling did not break his promise, and sent some wine to be brought in, and the infantrymen in the same group of attacking troops started drinking. Yuri's situation. In the Empire of the Heart, Yuri is the absolute monarch. Even heroic units like Yuri, without deliberately flattering or adding fuel to the fire. However, after the normal report, Yuri orders, no sense of the overall situation at all. Haha, Yuri chuckled and said, "Strong people always have personalities. As long as you have controlled him and submitted to my spiritual empire, these are not problems." Yuri, there were 3 coalition and allied bases that he had a relationship with before, but in the end, he chose the allied base that had nothing to do with him to attack. After taking it, he obviously had the strength to continue the attack, but he refused, so arrogant the way he looks is really uncomfortable. Yuri. Well, that's a problem. Yuri pondered for a moment, and then replied, "However, the problem is not big. Wang Ling refused to attack those 3 bases, but didn't he have no hold on defense? The 3 bases wanted to attack the psychic beacon, didn't they? Was he killed by his own hands? Yuri, but the 3 bases will not give up rescuing Wang Ling easily. It seems that they are still building the air force and want to blow up the psychic beacon. This is not okay. If you keep passively defending but refuse to attack, sooner or later you will be conquered. If the psychic beacon is blown up, then Wang Ling's control will be in vain." Finally coming to the point that Yuri cares about, the leader couldn't sit still. After pondering, he came up with an idea. Since Wang Ling refuses to attack the remaining 3 bases in Mater New City, then he can stay here. There is no point there anymore. Instead, there is a risk of being taken back. We can't let him stay there any longer. You take Wang Ling to the Ruishan branch. My clone is there. Hand Wang Ling over. He will arrange it? Yes, leader. The report finally ended. From the moment the radio was interrupted, Yuri, it's time to take care of your people. Although he received the transfer order, Yuri knew town base. The Ruishan branch is not very close to Made New City. Without any vehicles, it would be a bit time consuming to move Wang Ling there. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 792. Hey, X, what's going on with this anti-aircraft crawler? The news of the transfer had not yet been told to Wang Ling, but when Wang Ling saw the anti-aircraft tracked vehicle arriving, he also asked curiously. After all, he was from the coalition camp before and was quite familiar with this kind of vehicle. Now that he saw it, he was inevitably a little sensitive. Yuri, but won't you still disobey Chief Yuri's orders? Yuri ordered it himself? Copy. Haha, that's interesting. After hearing this, Wang Ling smiled playfully, stretched his body and replied, in that case, why not give him some face? Let's go. As he spoke, Wang Ling went straight to the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle without saying hello to anyone else. Is it true what Yuri X said? Is Wang Ling following Yuri's orders? No, Wang Ling was just going down the slope. Today, there are only 3 coalition and allied bases left in the made new city war zone, and these 3 bases had a very close relationship with Wang Ling before. Wang Ling really didn't want to face those people now. But staying in the Mata new city war zone, whether attacking or defending, they were the ones facing him, which really put Wang Ling in a difficult position. It's okay now. Yuri personally issued the transfer order and left here along the slope, which saved him from further embarrassment. In fact, with Wang Ling's current temperament, even if Yuri gives him an order that makes him unhappy, there is a chance that it will be rejected. However, now that he is a member of the Soul Empire, Wang Ling cannot be too resistant to the King Yuri. Other orders must be carried out. Wang Ling's statement also made Yuri in front of the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle. The land vehicle jumped off in one leap. Hey, you don't want to ride a donkey anymore? Are you willing to get down? After Wang Ling saw it, he couldn't help but tease him. Yuri taking another one is just for the sake of traveling and is temporarily abandoned. TCH, boring. Seeing that Yuri with a sound, he turned around and got directly into the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle. Yuri. After receiving the target person, the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle immediately turned around and left. With its superior mobility, it broke out of Made New City in a short time, and soon after it left the entire war zone and disappeared on the electronic map. General, Wang Ling has been picked up. He has left Made a New City. General, Wang Ling has been transferred. What should we do? Do we want to catch up and intercept him? In the command post of General Li Weiqi's base, Xiaoping Wang and Raoski saw Wang Ling move and immediately became anxious and called General Li Weiqi repeatedly. General Li Weiqi stared at the electronic map for a long time, and finally sighed, forget it, they used our anti-aircraft tracked vehicles to move, and they can't catch up with them at all. And after leaving the Mata New City Theater, the electronic map cannot, even if we use it, we can't trace him. Then just watch him being transferred. General, this won't work. Wang Ling is about to be transferred. How can we save him? The two of them were still impatient, but General Li Weiqi's eyes brightened a little. No, precisely because Wang Ling was transferred, we are more likely to bomb the psychic beacon as soon as possible. General, you mean? Yes, we failed before. It can be said that Wang Ling's firepower was too strong. But now that Wang Ling has been transferred, without his firepower interference, the possibility of success is even greater. That's right. The remaining allied base seems to be commanded by Agent Tanya. This little girl seems to be interested in Wang Ling. We can also contact her to assist. That's it? Several people hit it off immediately, and then General Li Weiqi hurriedly conveyed this idea to General Luo Er, and then contacted Agent Tanya. However, after expressing this idea, Agent Tanya's statement was a bit strange. General Li, our base is currently short of funds, and it may be difficult to provide strong support, but I will try my best. Apart from this matter, there is no way talk, General, Have you ever thought about why the Mind Empire suddenly transferred Wang Ling? Huh? This. When asked this question, General Li Wiki was stunned, but Rovsky on the side guessed, is there any other task that requires Wang Ling to be temporarily recruited to perform? I don't think. It's the psychic beacon that controls Wang Ling. I don't think the Mind Empire would be stupid enough to abandon Wang Ling's firepower for the mission and expose the psychic beacon to danger. You know, once the beacon was destroyed, and Wang Ling, who they planned to control for who knows how long, immediately lost control, Agent Tanya replied in a deep voice. After hearing this, King Xiaoping and Rovsky glanced at each other and seemed to have thought of this contradiction. At this time, General Li Wiki guessed something. Yes, the Soul Empire is not stupid, and with such strong firepower as Wang Ling, they will never give up. The emergency transfer of Wang Ling is probably because they are afraid that we will not give up. If we continue to attack, the psychic beacon will be destroyed sooner or later, so we transferred it in advance and let Yuri or other psychic beacons control Wang Ling. Really, General? If they really succeed, then we will have no hope of getting Wang Ling back. As soon as his guess came out, both Xiaoping Wang and Rovsky were shocked. Agent Tanya replied, yes, I am also worried about this problem, so our attack must be faster, and try to bomb the psychic beacon before Wang Ling transfers control. I checked, above the psychic beacon there is a vague connection, and the connection is none other than Wang Ling. As long as this connection is still there, it will not be too late for us to attack. Okay. However, we just carried out a large-scale attack the day before yesterday. It is too difficult to produce so many air forces in a short period of time. It's difficult and there's nothing we can do about it. We can only fight against time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 793. Agent Tanya and General Li Wiki really guessed the idea of the Soul Empire. Of course, guessing it is one thing, but whether it can be stopped is another. They are not sure when Wang Ling will be transferred and controlled, and in a short period of time, they cannot produce a large number of air forces and remote-controlled tanks. If they attack rashly, not only will they not succeed, but they will ruin their own troops. After all, mad even without Wang Ling's firepower, Xingqian's own defense power is still very strong. Of course, now Wang Ling didn't care at all what happened to the coalition and allied forces. After leaving Mater New City and no longer having to face the fetters of the past, Wang Ling suddenly felt much more relaxed. While feeling relaxed, there was also a vague sense of loss, as if something important had been suddenly lost. This kind of contradictory mood intertwined in Wang Ling's heart, making him feel melancholy, and he rarely showed some expressions of sadness. What's wrong? I rarely see you showing such an expression. Are you reluctant to leave, Yuri? Wang Ling rarely quarreled with him, and replied with a leisurely sigh, maybe, after all, I have been in the coalition for too long and left without being able to say goodbye to those lovely old subordinates. It is inevitable that I am a little reluctant to leave. A lovely old subordinate. Haha, this statement is somewhat interesting. But Wang Ling, you have to remember that you are now a part of the Soul Empire, and you need to completely cut off those bonds in the past. Yu Lix stared at Wang Ling and started preaching. But Wang Ling didn't feel embarrassed at all, and directly retorted, let's have fun. Will the next sentence say that I have to kill them with my own hands to be qualified? I am really looking forward to this kind of order. So. My temper, I am also very confused about what I will do. Although Wang Ling's tone sounded like he was joking, Yuri X's body suddenly trembled after hearing this, and a cold feeling came to his heart, making him unable to say a word. Yuri, come on, what consequences will there be? It's hard to predict. Thinking of this, Yuri X secretly became wary. Although Wang Ling had been controlled, his current temper had to be guarded against. At some point, I must warn leader Yuri to either restrain Wang Ling's personality or avoid Wang Ling's sensitive points. Don't step on the thunder. The topic ends here. Before arriving at the Ruishan branch, the electronic map would be unusable and unable to observe the surrounding environment. Wang Ling simply folded his arms, leaned on the seat of the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle, and rested. In the following time, except for convenience, he was almost always on the road. He even ate on the anti-aircraft crawler truck. After running around day and night for more than a day, Wang Ling finally came into contact with the electronic map in his subconscious. The area where the Ruishan branch is located has finally arrived. This area is a mountainous terrain with a vast area, no less than the new city of Mater. Looking at the entire electronic map, we can see that the environment in this mountainous area is very beautiful, with green trees, winding rivers, and even some villages surrounding it. However, the villagers in the village all looked confused, and it was obvious that they had all been controlled. The so-called Ruishan is located in the center of this mountainous area. It is a very tall and prominent mountain. The surrounding mountains have some traces of artificial transformation, and they look like stars looming over the moon, surrounding Ruishan Mountain. As for the Neruishan branch, it was naturally built on the top of Ruishan. Within the branch, there are 3 major Yuri bases, showing a tripartite trend. The various facilities in the base are very complete. In addition to the war equipment of ordinary bases, there are also some tall and unique buildings. Even Wang Ling had never seen these buildings before. In the center of the 3 bases, there is a spiritual beacon. The confused behavior of the surrounding villagers is due to this thing. Next to the psychic beacon, a magnificent palace-like building was built separately. It was probably either the location of Yuri's clone or the meeting place for the important figures in the psychic empire. Buzz. Yuri, after climbing and twisting and turning, we finally reached the top of Ruishan Mountain and stopped at one of Yuri's bases. It seemed that the news had been received a long time ago. When the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle arrived, hundreds of infantrymen of various types lined up to greet him. After Yuri X got off the car, they collectively gave a military salute, Lord X. Yuri. After reboarding the hovercraft, Wang Ling stepped out of the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle and stretched lazily. Although Wang Ling has now been controlled and has become a member of the Seoul Empire, in fact, due to his military type and identity, he is still quite out of place in the Ruishan branch. The group of people who originally greeted Yuri X saw after that, he didn't catch a cold at all, and some people even showed some hostile looks. What kind of gaze is this? Am I in the wrong place? Wang Ling asked strangely. One of the members of the psychic force snorted and replied, "You are not in the wrong place, it's just that we don't welcome you very much." This member of the psychic force is the person who controls the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle. It seems that he has fought with the coalition forces before, and he has a lot of hatred towards the coalition forces. However, Wang Ling didn't tolerate him, and immediately stared back and threatened, "Do you think I care about your horns? Show me some respect in front of me, otherwise I will kill you, and you won't even have a chance to beg for mercy." How presumptuous! This was the first time for the staff of the Ruishan branch to come into contact with Wang Ling. They were quite indifferent to Wang Ling's dark character. A Yuri recruit insulted him on the spot, "You think you are still in the coalition army, a high-ranking hero? You are just a prisoner here. Since you are a prisoner, you must have the consciousness of a prisoner." Whoosh! Bang! He was scolding, but he also succeeded in irritating Wang Ling. As soon as he finished speaking, without waiting for anyone else to react, Wang Ling suddenly stood in front of him, waved his hand and slapped him. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 794. Snapped. Wang Ling didn't hold back too much with this slap. Although it wasn't enough to kill someone with one slap, it still hit the Yuri recruit hard. There was a buzzing sound in his brain, and his face swelled up almost instantly. 4 fingerprints were almost imprinted on it. A large amount of blood was thrown out from the side of his mouth. His whole body was even blown away, spinning 720 times in the air. He fell to the ground. That's not all. He slapped Yuri's new recruit. As soon as he landed, Wang Ling stepped on his back. The force of this moment shocked Yuri's new recruit with internal injuries and made him vomit blood. Presumptuous. Of course, it wasn't just the Yuri recruit who was blinded. When the others heard the slap, their eyelids jumped fiercely. No one expected that Wang Ling could be so domineering and take action immediately at the slightest disagreement. You know, Wang Ling's status in the Seoul Empire is that of a prisoner. After regaining his composure, the Yuri recruit was trampled under Wang Ling's feet. This is a big deal. A prisoner actually dares to hurt someone in front of a group of people at the branch of the Seoul Empire? The member of the psychic force who had bluntly stated that he did not welcome Wang Ling before suddenly shouted loudly, and with this shout, all the Yuri recruits around him put their fingers on their temples, as if they were about to launch a mental shock at any time. The orc clenched his fists, and the next second he seemed to be rushing forward to blow up Wang Ling. The virus sniper also picked up his sniper rifle and was ready to shoot at any time. Click. But Wang Ling was not afraid of this situation at all. In an instant, he transformed into a SEAL team. With the MP5 submachine gun strengthened by the King of Soldiers in his hand, he provoked hundreds of infantrymen at close range. Stop. Seeing that the situation was about to get out of control, and more than 100 infantrymen and Wang Ling were about to fight at any time, Yuri reprimanded, "Put your hands down. How can a group of people use force on a large scale at their own base be unworthy? What kind of words?" This group of people were dissatisfied with Wang Ling, but they did not dare to conflict with Yuri got a sniper rifle. However, the previous member of the psychic force was still very unconvinced, and asked in public, "Master X. This guy has gone too far, why are you still protecting him? But Yuri as a guard, are you invincible? If I hadn't stopped him, once he opened fire, a group of you would have been wiped out by him alone. Master X, what you said is too exaggerated, isn't it? That's right, Master X, he wants to destroy all of us by himself? Is he worthy? He is just one person, and there are more than 100 of us, why can't we kill him?" Yuri X's words immediately caused an uproar among this group of infantrymen. Almost no one in the group was convinced. They always felt that Yuri. Just like what Yuri, I always feel that I am a head taller than the soldiers in other war zones. But now they are said to be worthless by Yuri. You. Lori is so fussy, are you annoyed? Yuri. While Yuri, you came here with the confidence to yell at me, are you worthy? The number of infantrymen I have killed with my own hands is more than any infantry you have ever seen. Do you think you are so good just by guarding a branch? If we really start a war, you are nothing fart. Asshole. I have never seen such an arrogant person. A prisoner dares to talk to us like this. If I don't give you some clues, you really don't know who you are. One stone stirred up 1,000 waves. A group of people were already dissatisfied with Yuri. Seeing that a conflict was about to break out, Yuri yet being stopped again, a group of people felt unwilling to accept it. A wild orc pointed at Wang Ling and complained, "Master X, this kid really deserves a beating, why do you keep stopping us?" "Don't talk about them," even Wang Ling echoed, "that's right, destroy them and stop making trouble. Damn it. This bastard is so arrogant. Master. Kill him." Being constantly stimulated by Wang Ling, this group of infantrymen became even more excited. However, Yuri, the rest will all die under Wang Ling's gun. Ha 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 ha. It's quite lively. Seeing that the situation was so chaotic that Yuri. A group of people followed the sound and looked. When they saw the person coming, they were all startled and hurriedly saluted, "Chief." It turns out that the person who just came here is Yuri. The king of this spiritual empire was actually attracted by this conflict and came here in person. "Chief," not only the infantry, but also Yuri X saluted quickly and showed a humble look. Only Wang Ling himself, instead of saluting, complained, "Tisk, here comes another disruptor." Snored. Hearing this, a group of infantrymen looked at each other angrily, but in front of Yuri, they did not dare to say anything at all. You can really see the gap between identity and status. Although Yuri, but in front of Yuri, he didn't dare to move, let alone refute.